Hey all, Ron here from Military Images Magazine with a new episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail. You know, the phrase lost cause, which is used to define the Confederacy's fight for sovereignty, is as old as the Civil War itself. One of those individuals who built a narrative around the concept was Edward Alfred Pollard, life dates 1831 to 1872, the editor of the Richmond Examiner. His 1866 book, The Lost Cause, A New Southern History of the War of the Confederates, seeks to write a narrative from the uniquely Southern perspective. The title alone speaks to Pollard's ambitions. There's no mention of a civil war or a war of the rebellion. These names, in his mind, lean too far into the sensibilities of the Northern victors. Pollard explains his reasoning right up front in his introduction. He notes the facts of the War of the Confederates in America have been at the mercy of many temporary agents. They have been either confounded with sensational rumors or discolored by violent prejudices. In this condition, they are not only history, but false schools of present public opinion. By composing a severely just account of the war on the basis of contemporary evidence, ascertaining and testing its facts, combining them in compact narrative, and illustrating them by careful analysis of the spirit of the press. Not only in this country, but in Europe, the author aspires to place the history of the war above political misrepresentations, to draw it from disguises and concealments, and to make it complete in three departments: the record of facts, the accounts of public opinion existing with them, and the lessons their context should convey or inspire. These three are the just elements of history. If the author succeeds in what he proposes, he will have no reason to boast that he has produced any great literary wonder, but he will claim that he has made an important contribution to truth and done something to satisfy curiosity without sensation and to form public opinion without violence. Now, I want to give you a flavor of his approach. So I'm going to share passages in which he addresses Lee's failure at Gettysburg. Here's Pollard's view on the matter. He writes in a section simply titled The Battle of Gettysburg. The great battle opened on 1st July. The enemy's advance, consisting of the 11th Corps, was met by Heath's division, and shortly thereafter, Ewell hurled the main body of his corps on the Federal column. When within 1 mile of the town, the Confederates made a desperate charge. The Federal line was broken. The enemy was driven in terrible confusion. The streets of the small town soon became thronged with fugitives, and Ewell, sweeping all before him, charged through the town, strewing every step of his progress with the enemy's dead and taking 5,000 prisoners. The crowded masses of fugitives poured through the town in rout and confusion, ascending the slopes of a hill towards a cemetery that covered its apex. It was not later than 5 o'clock in the evening, but the success was not followed up. As Ewell and Hill prepared for a fresh attack, they were halted by General Lee, who deemed it advisable to abstain from pressing his advantage until the arrival of the remainder of his army. The unfortunate inaction of a single evening and night enabled Meade, not only on his part, to bring up all his forces, but to post them on an almost impregnable line, which the Confederates had permitted a routed detachment of a few thousand men to occupy and hold. The failure of General Lee to follow up on the victory of the first enabled the enemy to take at leisure and in full force one of the strongest positions in any action of the war, and to turn the tables of the battlefield completely upon the Confederates. On the night of 1st July, General Meade in person reached the scene of action and concentrated his entire army on those critical heights of Gettysburg that had bounded the action of the first day, designated by the proper name of Cemetery Ridge. This ridge, which was just opposite the town, extended in a westerly and southerly direction, gradually diminishing in elevation till it came to a very prominent ridge called Round Top, running east and west. The Confederates occupied an exterior ridge less elevated, distant from the lines occupied by the Federals from a mile to a mile and a half. On this sunken parallel was arranged the Confederate line of battle. Ewell's corps on the left, beginning at the town with Early's division, then Rodes's division. On the right of Rodes's division was the left of Hill's corps, commencing with Heath's, then Pender's, then Anderson's divisions. On the right of Anderson's division was Longstreet's left, McLaws' division being next to Anderson's and Hood. On the extreme right of our line, which was opposite the eminence upon which the enemy's left rested. There was long a persistent popular opinion in the South that General Lee, having failed to improve the advantage of the first day, did wrong thereafter to fight at Gettysburg. But this charge must be discussed with care. General Lee himself has explained how a battle was forced upon him. He says, "It had not been intended to fight a general battle at such distance from our base unless attacked by the enemy. But finding ourselves unexpectedly confronted by the Federal army, it became a matter of difficulty to withdraw through the mountains with our large trains. At the same time, the country was unfavorable for collecting supplies, while in the presence of the enemy's main body, as he was enabled to restrain our foraging parties by occupying the passes of the mountains with regular and local troops. A battle thus became, in a measure, unavoidable, encouraged by the successful issue of the first day and in view of the valuable results which would ensue from the defeat of the army of General Meade. It was thought advisable to renew the attack. It is true that the position of the enemy was one of extraordinary strength, but the Army of Northern Virginia was in an extraordinary state of proficiency. It was flushed with victory. It had accomplished so many wonders in the past that it was supposed to be equal to anything short of a miracle. And when, on the morning of the 2nd, General Lee reconnoitered the field and scanned the heights which looked upon through the brows of brass and iron, he was noticed to rise in his stirrups and mutter an expression of confidence. He decided to attack. Pollard goes on for a number of paragraphs and a few pages to detail the fighting on the second day, the Little Round Top action, and elsewhere in the battlefield, and of course, on the third day, Pickett's charge. And then he comes back and notes Gettysburg may be taken as the grand climacteric of the Southern Confederacy. It was the customary phrase of John M. Daniel, editor of the Richmond Examiner, that on the 3rd July, on the heights of Gettysburg, the Confederates were within a stone's throw of peace. The expression is not extravagant when we reflect what would have been the moral effect of defeating Meade's army and uncovering New York, Philadelphia, and Washington, when, too, the fate of Vicksburg was not decided and the vitals of the Confederacy were untouched. So there you have the opinion, the narrative of Pollard writing about the lost cause in his 1866 book, just to give you a flavor of how he put the facts together and how he put the public opinion together to tell the Southern version of the story. So thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail.